All right, thanks for joining me, everyone. Charles Moscowitz here. It's a pleasure to be joined by Dr. Jerome Corsi. Dr. Corsi, of course, is a best-selling author. He's got an archive of articles at WorldNet Daily and at Human Events. He is the host of his own YouTube program, Corsi Nation, and he testified with the Mueller Committee in a book out about that, which is very insightful in terms of what was going on there. Dr. Corsi, thanks for joining me today.
Always a pleasure to be with you, Charles. Thank you.
I want to ask you about two things. The first one is the fact that the virus is, according to the media, growing very rapidly and could really reach very high, even catastrophic proportions by the fall of this year. And yet, there continues to be this media blackout and this major discouragement on the use of various legacy drugs that have proven to be helpful in terms of saving lives, and that includes hydroxychloroquine. What is going on with that right now?
Well, we just published a free ebook on CorsiNation.com on the hydroxychloroquine. It has the research of three very prominent MDs. Dr. Zelenko, who has put together the protocol, which involves hydroxychloroquine and the use of zinc and an antibiotic, usually azithromycin, and also the work of two very prominent physicians, Dr. Harvey Risch, R-I-S-C-H. He's both an MD and a PhD. He's an epidemiologist on the faculty at Yale, and George Fareed, F-A-R-E-E-D. He's an MD. He's practicing now in a poor area right on the California border with Mexico. In his background, he is a Harvard Medical School graduate. He taught on the faculty at Harvard Medical School and the faculty of UCLA. And all three of these are producing research which shows the efficacy of using hydroxychloroquine in either early stage COVID-19, hopefully out before someone enters the hospital, hopefully to keep them out of the hospital, or even prevention. And the research is quite compelling. So we're launching here a major effort to confront the medical establishment that is defying, does not want basically a $20 generic medication that's been around for 75 years, but appears to really work worldwide against hydroxychloroquine. So the Dr. Fauci's and the NIH and the CDC and the FDA are preserving the ground for a big pharmacy solution or vaccine, which may or may not ever work, and are willing to have people die in the meantime.
It's unconscionable. The fact that people are dying when they could be treated here. I saw Dr. Reish interviewed by Laura Ingraham on Fox. This is something that is well known. I believe that there's some evidence that people in the front lines of the medical establishment, people in the trenches, so to speak, are taking hydroxychloroquine. It has been used successfully in Spain, in France, in Israel, in Britain, and in other countries, I think Taiwan. And yet there continues to be this very, very suspicious ban on even mentioning hydroxychloroquine. You could get taken off of the YouTube for mentioning hydroxychloroquine.
Well, we have a program at Corsi Nation, a tele-MD program, and we're not selling drugs, but you're getting an interview with an MD who's licensed in your state who can prescribe hydroxychloroquine and zinc, or including the antibiotic if you need it, even for prevention. And we have a pharmacy, the program, that can legally fulfill that prescription of hydroxychloroquine for COVID and mail the prescription to you. It's increasing demand. And the problem is, this whole idea that there's a heart problem, this QT interval with hydroxychloroquine is really pathetic. We got many interviews, including with cardiologists on the Corsi Nation website, where the doctors are saying that the FDA does not put out these similar alerts for hydroxychloroquine, which is widely prescribed for lupus, for rheumatoid arthritis, for malaria. Literally, hundreds of millions of prescriptions of this have been written over 70 years. and it's rare that anyone has this heart problem. And the FDA still allows it to be a off-label medication for COVID. But see, the problem is the CDC and the NIH are not really government agencies. They're quasi-government agencies. They have public-private partnerships with big pharmacy. They're a 501c3 foundation. They get money from the Gates Foundation and others. And the doctors like Fauci take their research on disease elements and they get patents on treatments. And under the Bayh-Dole Act, which goes back about 30 years when Bob Dole was in the Senate, Fauci and other doctors working for the government agencies get money on these patents when big pharmacy produces a medication that uses their patents to treat a disease. And the patents that Fauci has on this glycoprotein 120 and the spike protein of the HIV-1 pathogen, AIDS disease, is also in the COVID-19 disease. So it's very likely he could get paid if big pharmacy comes up with a vaccine or treatments like this remdesivir. I'm not sure he's getting any money on remdesivir, but it's that money aspect of control of big pharmacy. And what I'm saying, and we're organizing, these doctors now are going to be doing a media campaign, a media blitz, let the American people know that our government doctors will let you die rather than get you hydroxychloroquine and zinc. And the consequences in this low dosage that you need to take for preventative or for dealing with COVID are so low. You know, if they're scaring you that you're going to have a heart problem, and you know, doctors are being brought before the board and pharmacies could lose their licenses, this is absolutely disgraceful. And I'm accusing
it's
that
really malpractice is what it is.
It's a crime against humanity.
Clearly, and hydroxychloroquine is very inexpensive. It's $20 for a 2-week regimen of it, and yeah, there's no big money in it for big pharma. The hydroxychloroquine itself was invented and extracted from chloroquine, which had some dangerous elements, and done so that it would be a safer drug. Now, President Trump announced yesterday that the federal government has signed a contract with Merck Industries for 200 million doses of what they believe is going to be an effective vaccine. Do you know anything about that, Dr. Corsi?
Well, these are vaccines are a little bit different in design. Some of them are trying to redesign your RNA, redoing fundamental human chemistry. Others are producing antibodies, but are not necessarily producing an immune response. The contracts that President Trump let out from the federal government are only if these vaccines pass the trials.
Right.
And the trials are now ongoing. They won't be ready until the end of the year. And I'm saying that the COVID-20, much more serious disease, which I've been describing in an ebook, again, another ebook on my website, corsination.com, will be, the intelligence agencies are telling me it's already been released in Kazakhstan, where a new deadly disease, COVID, is being reported. Even the World Health Organization, which I don't particularly trust given its association with China, but the World Health Organization has alerted the world that this new disease in Kazakhstan is being misdiagnosed as a pneumonia, but it is really a new form of COVID. And it has, for instance, like 2,600 children have been reported ill, under 6 years of age, not dead yet, but ill from this new disease. That's clearly a new disease, because COVID-19 is not hitting the young in the United States or around the world. And if a new disease hits, I'm saying what I'm designing or told is in this disease. I mean, you can see it in this ebook, which is a combined HIV-1 type attack on your immune system, at the same time attack on your cardiac system, where the hemoglobin will not absorb the oxygen in your lungs. I'm saying this could kill 1 out of 4 people, and including very healthy people. And the only thing the doctors are saying will prevent it from doing so is hydroxychloroquine and zinc in early stages, or to prevent the disease from prevent you from catching it. That's why we've ramped up this free ebook on hydroxychloroquine. It's why we've ramped up a media campaign by doctors, including Dr. Risch, whose credentials are impeccable. And I think you're going to be seeing a lot more of us arguing in public that the government doctors like Fauci are trying to kill you for their profit motive with Big Pharma.
When you say that this new disease, this COVID-20, is being released in Kazakhstan, what do you mean released? Is it something that is coming out of some kind of a lab here, or is it just simply something that's occurring?
I'm confident, and I present the evidence in this book on COVID-20, that the current COVID-19 was lab created in Wuhan. There's a similar biolab in Kazakhstan, and all the intelligence I've gotten are saying it's coming out of Kazakhstan's lab, and it is again bioengineered. It's a weaponized virus. And if it hits the United States in September, it's going to cause absolute chaos because we're already conditioned going to a lockdown.
I mean, why aren't the alarms being set off about this? I mean, this is literally an invasion in the worst sense of the American people.
Well, again, look at what happened in Wuhan. I mean, the disease was being reported. I was watching it in December 2019. And in January, it was clear that the disease, COVID-19 in Wuhan in China, was ravaging China. They were going into lockdowns. There were massive numbers of deaths. But the United States was still in the middle. We just finished the, Russia hoax.
Right, they were too busy with that, and in fact,
Ukraine and the Senate impeachment trial in February. It wasn't until the Senate impeachment trial failed that the left decided that they would roll out this attack on President Trump with the virus, and suddenly, once no one was talking anymore about impeachment in the Senate, there were all those Adam Schiff and all the hearings and on Ukraine. It's hard to even remember it now.
Yes.
There's COVID. It's just another attack on Trump. And I've been writing ebooks
that and race conflict.
Yes.
Dr. Corsi, then speaking of which, I wanted to ask you about, because I've heard you make comments in the past that you have strong reservations and suspicions with regard to the work of Attorney General Barr in terms of investigating and uncovering this conspiracy this coup attempt, really, against the Trump administration, the spying on President Trump, and his special prosecutor, John Durham. I keep hearing rumors and I keep hearing rumblings that, it's about to happen. He's about to finally release indictments. He's about to, people are going to be publicly charged. Do you have any information about that? What's going on at this point?
Well, I mean, what I'm hearing, and of course, I've been concerned because we keep hearing that Durham is making investigations and, that there's going to be breakthroughs, there's going to be indictments. But, we heard the trust sessions, and then there were going to be all these sealed indictments. This was going on about 2 years ago. I think Barr wants to protect the institution of the Justice Department. And, he has not fired the prosecutors from the Mueller investigation. Aaron Zelinsky, who went after me, is still there. I refuse to take their plea deal. I think the prosecutors who went after me should be investigated for crimes they committed as prosecutorial misconduct, suborning perjury, as they did with General Flynn. They put a gun to General Flynn's head and his son's head and said, "We'll pull the trigger if you don't sign here on this plea deal." That's criminal behavior on the part of the prosecutors. I think that, first of all, Acting Attorney General Grinnell started releasing information that put the pressure on Barr that he can't just sit there. And Barr has even made statements like he'd like to wait until after the election to bring indictments. Well, if Joe Biden wins, there'll never be any indictments.
Of course.
And so more information is being released now by our Director of National Intelligence, John Ratcliffe. And we got some even recently, with new information that this New York Times article in January 2017 about all the supposed contacts between the Trump administration and high-level Russian officials. Pulitzer Prizes were won on that article. And now we have Peter Strzok's notes. He's from, one of the two lovers that was going. And it was clear that the FBI and the Department of Justice knew that there was no Russian collusion going on with Trump's campaign, and that the information of the Steele dossier was disinformation that Putin had provided in order to make sure that Donald Trump, if he did win, would be indicted. I mean, I think Putin's plan was there was enough information on Hillary that if she won, she could have been indicted over any number of things, including her email server and the misuse of classified information, or uranium one. I think Putin would have been happy to see Obama continue in office for a couple more years. It's pretty clear that Obama, who told Medvedev will be much more flexible in our second term, tell that to Vladimir. Obama was the one who looks to me like he was the Russian agent. But the point is, when this new information comes out, the American public, I think, is getting demanding that there be justice here, especially when we see General Flynn get prolonged by this Judge Sullivan, who thinks that he can sentence he can sentence General Flynn even when the Department of Justice has withdrawn the criminal charges.
Unprecedented.
It's insane. Yeah. But I think the American people now are realizing that what we do have is a globalist deep state in the bureaucracy that now control. The Democrats are a Democrat socialist party. They're a Maoist party for all intents and purposes. And they're out in the open. Now, what you're seeing in Portland, Oregon, with the burning and the riots every night, in Chicago with the shootings and the murders and the withdrawal of the police, these Democratic controlled states and cities are already in rebellion. They will not.
And there may be hopefully there may be a backlash against that in the election. I don't know, but what I'm also seeing is that President Trump's FBI under Wray is slow walking all of these documents. They're not investigating. It took Judicial Watch 9 months to get a release of the Peter Strzok conversations, and even then, they were heavily redacted for some reason without explaining why. And what the heck is going on with that? I mean, how corrupt is that?
It's extreme. See, you've got to realize, I think Trump does realize it now, that the entire bureaucracy is globalist. They're been packed by Obama with leftists, many of them Muslim Brotherhood, including in the CIA, Department of Justice. They, took away during Obama's administration the definition of radical Islamic terrorism. It couldn't be, if it was, Islamic, it couldn't be radical Islamic terrorism.
Under Brennan. That's right.
Brennan. Yeah, those weren't Muslims. Give me a break. And so finally, you see the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, the IRS, still not they're not investigating the Clinton Foundation or Black Lives Matter, which even New York has said cease and desist because it's not a foundation. It's not even registered as a corporation in California.
Very corrupt. It's kind of a continuation of Acorn, actually.
Yeah, and what you've got is the bureaucracy is so leftist, and like the universities. We've allowed this anti-American, really communist, Maoist in particular, 3 lesbian women who founded Black Lives Matter are avowed Marxists.
And openly so, and have said so in interviews.
Yeah, and, Trevor Loudon is right. These are the Maoist organizations, and Soros has funded them. Now they've extorted corporations. If you, don't go along with putting a knee to Black Lives Matter and demonizing the white race, we're going to trash your brand. And so Nike.
So huge shakedown, and companies who don't want controversy, they don't want boycotts. They're just willing to capitulate and buckle under to this shakedown, this extortion. Basically, it's a racket.
And they use the idea of, this is about racial justice. Well, this is not a civil rights movement. They cared about racial justice. They care about the fact that Black neighborhoods are being burned down across the country. Black businesses are being looted. Black people are being killed.
They care about the fact that in Chicago there was over 100 people killed in one weekend, five of whom were children, most of whom were black. They don't care about black people.
Black lives only matter when they've got an issue they can use for revolution.
Right. That's
No,
it. Exactly.
that's
It has
it.
nothing to do with black lives. It has to do
No.
with Marxist revolutionaries, and that's exactly what this is. This is like 1848 in Europe. It's an uprising in the big cities, and the mayors and the governors in those states are. This is why they're doing nothing. It's not that they can't do anything; it's that they won't do anything. So they're trying to create an agitation that will cause the federal government to come in with military personnel. And in that regard, President Trump has actually been pretty restrained. I mean, even Obama called out the feds at Ferguson. I mean, this is something that's entirely appropriate. It's an insurrection, and President Trump's been very restrained actually in his response. What say you?
Well, I think it's, this is a replay. You see the model here was tried out in the Arab Spring. The same thing, prolonged protests in the Tahrir Square in Egypt. Same thing in Maidan, the square in Kiev, and the overthrow of the government in 2014. Again, Soros and the State Department architected that. And what you saw in the end of when they did in Maidan, they even had sharpshooters, snipers kill about 50 of the protesters.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, the military come in, and now you've got the optics of military, and it led to the overthrow of the government because part of the escalation of violence is in the playbook of these revolutionaries to demonstrate the oppression of the state. And if what I'm concerned about too is that the playbook is to get ever more violent, and the violence will not only be destruction of property, but even attacks on whites. You begin to see some of that with this couple who were now indicted in Missouri for using weapons to protect their home,
their property. And that the woman, the DA over there, was a Soros-backed person, and that it has all the markings of something that's very planned. Now, President Trump is responding by sending plainclothes the federal people, and I think my sense is that might backfire because it makes it look like, like a military, extra legal involvement. What do you think should be done? I mean, what is the appropriate response by the federal government to this insurrection?
Well, I think President Trump is now starting decisions that were just made to send in another round of federal law enforcement. And I think they're going to be identified as federal law enforcement. There are legitimate interests to protect federal property. And I believe that the key is just like in the statue topplings, once the protesters, not protesters, once these anarchists, the revolutionaries realized they were going to be photographed and arrested and face 10 years in prison, the statues quit coming down with the same rapidity.
Yeah.
I think the same thing is to now go out and arrest under federal law 1,000 or 2,000 of these anarchists and make them face criminal liabilities that are serious. And you'll begin to have an impact, which involves photographing them, identifying them, and active law enforcement work. What you don't want is a police force or military force coming in and engaging in a riot with the protesters, because then you've got the optics and you've got the situation where the mainstream media will make Trump and the military look like they're the oppressors.
Right, exactly. And that's what I think they're going to do. And if you bring in people, it's going to be like the Palmer raids of 1920 when Attorney General A. Mitchell Palmer picked up 3,000 anarchists after they had engaged in bombings of federal agents and federal properties across the country, all in one day, June 6, 1920. And he deported them within a week or two. It goes down in history as something infamous, but in fact, it broke the back of that whole movement for almost a generation. I don't know if this is what can be done now, but it's going to get a very big and very nasty portrayal in the mainstream media. I mean, it's obvious the case because they're already portraying everything Trump does as somehow evil. It's going to play right into their narrative.
Yeah, the mainstream media is part of the revolution.
Right.
and they've joined on ideologically. The left in the United States has come into this ideological grip of Maoism. They've created this blue pill reality in which truth doesn't matter. It's they want people to put Black Lives Matters signs on their lawns because they want to indicate that no one wants racial injustice. Well, no one wants racial injustice, but the problem is you got to wake up to the fact that you're being manipulated on this in order to destroy freedom, and that these people are totalitarian. Fortunately, I think the average American is getting to see that the Democrats are running their 2020 presidential campaign in the streets of Portland, Oregon. This is what America is going to look like if they win. This is not going to
That's right.
stop.
It could also play out in favor of President Trump, as the 1920 Palmer raids played out in favor of Massachusetts Governor Calvin Coolidge, who busted the communist-inspired police strike and said, "Look, we're going to get back to business here." And he was propelled into the presidency, and it ended this whole rotten leftist movement. At that time, it didn't show its head again until the 1960s. So, it depends on how it's played.
All these things are consistent. If we win the hydroxychloroquine debate, we're going to be shining the light on the corruption of Fauci, Birx, Redfield, this mafia that controls the government medical establishment in favor of big pharma. Money, money, money. If we are able to break the back of Black Lives Matter and Antifa, where people realize this will come to the suburbs, this will come to their front lawns, this is not the America we want to live in, and they reject this, and we begin to get effective law enforcement that begins to round these people up and say to the Democrats, the Democratic mayor in Portland wades into the riot to participate in the riot, and the riot turns on him because he's not radical enough for them.
That's right. His house gets looted.
You can't be radical enough for these people. They're out of their minds with this radicalism.
Well, hopefully, as has been the case, they'll overplay their hand, and the American people will see it in all of its ugliness. Dr. Corsi, let my listeners and viewers know where they can reach you, where they can read your excellent articles and books.
Everything is on, all the Black Lives Matter and Antifa. Everything I'm doing is on CorsiNation.com. CORSI, CorsiNation.com. Now, there's hours and hours of videos that are free. The hydroxychloroquine ebook that we just released is free. Just fill in your name in the form. You'll see it on the homepage, and we'll email the ebook to you. My other books are ebooks that are for sale that we've written, and they are my current. I've also got my entire library of authors' copies I'm signing and are for sale in the bookstore, and some donations for I'm signing Coup d'etat, my current book, and Silent No More for a donation, and we've got different ways to donate, and I'm sending out books for the donation. So there's lots of ways to contribute, and people who do contribute will keep us going. And I think we are continuing the fight here for the Constitution, for God. I don't want to see a godless state. A godless state in the United States of America, we will lose a godless state.
Exactly, as is the case historically. So, yeah, I mean, we should all be on the same side on that. Jerry Corsi, thank you so much for joining me this afternoon.
Always my great pleasure, Charles. Enjoyed it too, and thank you. And